to Solo Journeys podcast, where every journey begins with a single step. In this episode, we will dive into an uncomfortable yet highly relevant topic: divorce and marriage contracts. I'm your host Sasha, and this podcast is all about the philosophy of solo journeying. Today I'm talking to Richard, who is an expert in family law. Hello, Richard. What is your background?
I'm originally Czech. My grandmother spoke German without an accent. She was from the Czech part of the population, so family felt Czech, but they spoke German. They're originally from Moravia, and that's the area where you had Germans, Jews, and Czechs. So quite a lively area where you get a lot of intelligent brains from engineers, etc., etc. Because if you combine Slavs, Germans, and Jews, you get a pretty cool mixture. So my parents moved to Germany when I was 3 years old. So I grew up in Germany. Yeah, we spoke Czech at home, and I'm brought up German, but Russified thanks to immersion into Russian culture. Went to study in St. Petersburg University in 94 to 95. I spent 5 years in Moscow, studied law. I studied for 1 year at New York University, studied European Union law studies in Berlin for 1 year, which was a mixture of economics, politology, and all that bullshit, which is super interesting. And because you see how the EU works, and then when I saw how it works, I was so disgusted with it that my thoughts of becoming a Eurocrat became like non-existent. And then I decided to go into international arbitration. I worked in international arbitration, and then I moved over to do some M&A work. I continued with international arbitration in a Swedish law firm, went to Stockholm. And from them, they sent me on to first St. Petersburg for half a year, and then for 1 year onwards to Moscow. So, and there I spent 5 years. And then with a Ukrainian oligarch, I came to Zurich. And then, oligarchs have the habit of becoming bankrupt or bust, and you get kicked out and whatever. So, after 2 years bankruptcy, and I continued my way and I opened my legal office here. Yeah, it's an interesting journey. It looks very logical in hindsight, but it's every step is new, and now the picture sort of is clear, but when you are along those steps, you have no clue you have no clue where you'll end up. So basically I came to Zurich 12 years ago and started doing family law because I had a friend who works in family law, and so I got basically all the advice from him, and so I could, and because I worked in litigation, I like it. So I have a litigation approach. I think it's just purely transactional. It's about money, because marriage is a contract. There is love. What is love? I mean, love is...
Hormones?
Yes, hormones, and hormones go away 2 or 3 years, and then they're gone. You can keep it up by not living together.
You will still have the 3 years.
It's spread out over longer time. Yeah, exactly. I'm not a relationship expert, I'm maybe an expert in unrelationship. I spoke with a friend, and she said, as soon as you're together, you always have to think of the other part. If you do something, you always have to consider the other part as well. You're not really free. There's no freedom. And then the question is, what are you giving it up for? And we come to the question of how many marriages are happy. If 50% of the marriages divorce, then of the remainder, how many marriages are really happy?
Kids, financial situation keep people together after hormones are gone.
Yes, it's a forced economic relationship. It
doesn't depend on location or nationality. It's everywhere.
It's universal misery. From a society point of view, it is very, very useful because it provides for the children, keeps the male in check to do useful things and not pointless things, which males tend to do when they have too much time and money on their hands. Apart from that, for the individual, I think, marriage it's not needed. If I had daughters, I would tell them, you want commitment from a guy, you go and get him married. But I have boys, 3 boys, so I tell them, don't you idiots think of marrying. I mean, I'm not saying you will find a female to have kids with. At least you will have a little bit less obligation. Marriage is a legal contract with a lot of legal consequences which you don't know about when you enter into it. You think it's just somehow confirmation of your love and your desire to stay together for a long time.
Here I have a question. Do you need to be married? Is there any form of contract for people who are not married? Because I've heard sometimes that, for example, if you were for a certain time together, you are considered as a couple. In Denmark, it's quite case.
Argentina is, for example, a case where after 5 years you're considered a couple. There is some jurisdictions which have this concept of if you live long enough together, then basically we apply marital law. Switzerland is not one of them. Yes, you can have prenup, you can have a postnup, so you can do a marriage contract before you marry, you can do a marriage contract after you're married, and if you decide not to get married, you can have a contract regulating your relationship with the other partner, which is also very useful because otherwise a lot of these cases end up in big legal quarrels. It is useful. If you live together with your boyfriend or girlfriend and he has a car, you have an electric bike, he has his savings, you have your savings, there's no need for that. But if you then suddenly decide, oh, let's have kids, number one. Second, you decide, let's buy real estate together. Well, then it gets more complicated. Because then you can have a lot of sorting out and, she decorates the whole house, her parents invest into the house, and all of these questions appear. Then your lawyer tells you after 7 years what all of this means legally. Does that make sense? No. It's better to think about it. I always say that the legal follows the factual. You don't start this living together with a contract in mind. You don't start this living together with a contract, but when doing that, be aware that there's consequences and then think of regulating those consequences. Just in case, because
Homework.
Yes, it's homework. If you don't do anything, you will end up screwed in 5, 7, 8 years. Screwed at least by having to go through this process, by having to consult with your lawyers. It's so demoralizing and so burdening to have to deal with lawyers with your problem because you have a problem. That is why you go to a lawyer. You don't go to a lawyer because you're happy. You go to a lawyer because you have a problem. And then you deal with this problem on a constant basis, and the problem does not go away until the whole thing is concluded. And people are burdened by court proceedings. They are burdened by divorce proceedings. So why not get this right from the start, especially considering that 50% of all divorces, of all marriages end up in divorce. 70% if you go to Eastern Europe. Russia, Ukraine, it's like 65%. Very surprising, Serbia has one of the lowest rates in Europe, 30%. But for example, Turkey, I think is like 40%. India, which has arranged marriages, has a divorce rate of 13%. Now imagine, the basis of marriage is not love, the desire to procreate, to be part of the continuing family of Rajiv and Aisha, So, and you continue and, you have all the relatives giving you advice and giving you gold and giving you this and that and that. It creates a different kind of bond.
Yeah, when I was younger, it was something like a horror movie for me to see these arranged marriages, but the more adult I became, the more sense I saw in it. Still not the model that I would adopt myself. I started to understand it. Yes. It's just rational approach towards the marriage.
I was discussing it with a judge and he said, well, people overburden marriage with expectations because you expect perfect husband who takes care of the children, shares the burden of all the household with you.
Ever a beautiful woman.
Exactly, who doesn't age, the princess of, and in addition to that, you expect emotional fulfillment. Now, how does that sound? It sounds like a recipe for disaster. Splitting up is wonderful.
And now we're coming to the point, why is divorce your favorite topic? Why do you love it?
I love it because divorce is like a cold rain shower after a hot and humid day, when everything clears, when all this dust is gone, when you have some fresh breeze and you can really feel something new is coming. Because our life is about new things. Our life is not about sitting in the prison and doing the same thing the same day. That's called prison. Our life is about experiencing new things. And in order to have this kind of fun, do you tie yourself to a stone and say, I have to really work on it that I can stay tied to this stone?
So are you standing for a solo lifestyle?
No, I'm
personal a little bit?
Of course, it's my personal view on it. It's not a view which fits everyone. There's so many different people and there's certain types, and there will be definitely people to whom a marriage is a good thing, who will appreciate it and who will like it and who will prefer it to anything else they can have. I'm speaking about myself. Why should I invest time into being with a person when the result in any case will be that after 5 years I'm going to be fed up, and the person is going to be fed up with me, likely, because I always say the same bullshit about marriage, and divorce and.
Interesting point of view. What do you think, who is in risk group, a woman or a man?
A risk group for what?
If you look into economical part of it, man has to support child and woman still at the same level of lifestyle, living at the minimum.
Who has the bigger disadvantages from divorce? Who should be more worried about divorce, the female or the male? Everyone is screwed in a divorce, because essentially the female who thought she can bring up the kid with the help of a man who will be there as a father and provide her a few hours of, he goes out and teaches the child to drive a bike, to, go ice skating, while she can at last sit down, call her mother, relax, and have a few hours for herself. And this is gone. And imagine there's no father, and then you're tied to this child, you're the personal slave of this child, which is wonderful for the child, but not for you as a personality. If you consider motherhood a goal in life, yes, then you reach your goal, but yourself then being tied to a child is a minus in a way for your personality. You will not be able to spend time doing things which you might be doing otherwise, traveling, developing yourself, getting further education. You will be tied to that child. So this is a typical case of the woman is screwed. The husband disappears, or the husband or the guy, if we take unmarried woman, is screwed, because her next 15 years will be just revolving around this child. And she will not be able to have a proper relationship. Maybe yes, maybe no, but as soon as there's kids, both are screwed. If there's no kids, well, then it's just a question of how much you pay in order to get rid of that old problem of yours, and that's it. The alimonies are damn high in Switzerland. I would say probably one of the highest in Europe, if you look around. But it does not make the female who is receiving this alimony much happier. Giving a good example, the guy, he has a decent salary of 10,000. He has a family. Wife doesn't work. 2 kids. The wife will end up with alimonies of around, let's say, 2 kids, one year, 1 2 years. The guy will end up paying 5,500 per month to the wife and the kids for the next 4 years. And after that it will go down a little bit, but still until the kids are gone, 18, then still he'll be paying for their upkeep. So he's screwed for the next 22 years. That's it. And he'll think really hard, even if he had to pay just 2,000 out of his 10. Will he do another family? No. He's done with that part of his life. Woman, assuming this is her aim, if she gets herself a boyfriend, she will be able to recoup, so that the guy loses 5,000 from his salary. And there's no chance for him, unless he makes a wonderful career, to recoup those 5,000. The woman, instead, she's able to recoup 2,000 or 3,000 in addition to the alimony which she's being paid. So by divorcing, she loses 2,000 if she plays it clever and gets a new boyfriend. Well,
recommendation?
Well, of course. But yes, of course. I mean, the best thing you can do is get yourself another boyfriend, and especially one with a good bank account. So, well, that always helps anyway.
Yeah.
But
it was my next question. What is your recommendation here for both parties, men and women in divorce? So get a rich next boyfriend?
Well, yes. The chance of finding a girlfriend who is willing to finance you as a guy is not very high. The chance of finding a boyfriend who is willing to finance you as a female is much higher. That's just reality. If you were in the relationship to some extent, it takes a while before you recover after some divorce. It's a big blow to most people. I mean, I'm just breaking it down to the financial part, because that's the easiest part to deal with. Not the easiest, but it's sort of the part which is being dealt with in court. That's the financial part. And all the rest is for your psychologist. What is the advice for the guy? Get a better job after that fast. But only after you're divorced, because only then your ex doesn't participate in that.
During the divorce, people are highly emotional. How do you abstract yourself?
Well, I remember speaking with a family lawyer right now back in Germany, and she said, well, essentially we work as psychologists. And I was thinking, yes, we work as psychologists, but without being trained for that. You're not trained to deal with psychological problems. As a lawyer, you're not trained. They train you to apply the law. The more experience you get as a lawyer, you start looking not at the legal situation, but at interests. What does that person really want? What is it that she's looking for? I mean, for a guy, it's pretty simple. Access to his children and minimizing alimonies. What is she looking for? I always say, the only thing I can help you with is money. So let's focus on that. Alimonies and property or asset splitting. That's what I focus on. And all the emotional part, I do work with a psychologist where I send my clients to when I think that they might benefit from speaking with a professional, not just me. I'm a legal professional, but not a psychological professional. So I remember one guy, he was, but I want my wife to understand, etc., etc. And I told him, stop competing with Jesus Christ on the cross. Focus on yourself. Mm-hmm. You're not in a dialogue anymore. When I hear females, yeah, but George, and I say, no, there is no George. George is dead. We're dealing just with asshole. So this is the mindset which you need to instill on clients. It sounds like a belligerent approach. And yes, there's a reason why if you're in the army, you dehumanize your enemy. You have no mercy with him. You don't take prisoners. It makes sense in litigation. If you go to American lawyers, they will say litigators have a no prisoner approach. And that makes complete sense. Also in family law. But with a but, because you need to see how much is the party prepared to fight. There's people who don't want to fight. It's a personal choice. And just because you come to a lawyer who loves to fight and you don't want to fight, then your lawyer needs to accept that, or you need to change lawyers. That's clear.
What about you?
Me?
Yeah. What kind of lawyer are you?
I'm a fighting lawyer. That's what I like about my work. At home, I'm super peaceful and I hate fighting. I hate arguments. Jesus Christ, no. I need peace at home. I have war outside. I need to have peace at home.
Who is your typical client? Is it a woman, a man?
Maybe in the past I had more females. Presently, somehow I feel that I have more males, but I've not sorted out the statistics of clients. It would be an interesting exercise, but I think before it was like 60% females, probably now turned to 50-50 roughly. Know what you want?
Yeah.
Yes. There's also people who don't know what they want. And it's not my job as a lawyer to tell them what they want. I can give them the options, but they need to make their selection. If they don't want to fight, I'm the last one to force them.
How do you find your clients?
Clients?
How do they find you?
It's mostly by reputation.
And what does it cost to go through a divorce as painlessly as possible? This is your quote from the website.
Pain is not measured just in money. Money is a function of your work time spent. So money is lifetime. It can be costly emotionally, financially, time loss on the divorce, not being able to move on. There is no recipe of as painlessly as possible is. As painlessly as possible is always in relation to the respective case. And if you have a certain case, and the certain case you see you could settle it, or you could squeeze out some 30, 40, 50,000 more after deducting legal costs after 2 years, do you really advise your client to do that? One case, and the client was earning something close towards $1 million a year. And in the divorce, we had like one point where we could litigate around 100,000. 100,000, just a quick question. You litigate it through and. And then you need to decide. And I told the client, look, you will be a happier man when you focus on earning money instead of focusing on fighting your ex-wife about 100,000, which you will have earned within 3-4 months. Come to a reasonable agreement and get it over with. I try to make my clients understand it's a process. They go through it, but we finish it. We don't drag it out without any need. Sometimes, yes, you need to fight it out, but it needs to make sense in the grand scheme of things. There's cases where people say, I just want to fight for the fight's sake. And then I tell them, okay, fine. Just understand that the price tag is 50,000 on this bullshit. That you need to understand. And 50,000 buys you a lot of vacation, an interesting and nice time. Instead of time with your lawyer, time invested into 30 pages of paper plus 100 pages of attachments.
How much does it cost to hire you?
If you go for marriage protection proceedings, simply separation proceedings, anything from 6 to 20,000 is 6 is on the low side. If it's easy, you manage it for 6,000 and that's it. As soon as you have kids involved and if you're fighting around something, well, you get to 10, 12,000 pretty fast. 20,000 is more the exception and things should not cost this much. You can get there. If you fight around custody, well, then you're in for a lot of money.
And how long does it take in average?
Divorce proceedings, the ones which finished today where we reached settlement in court, started on 2nd September. And we finished today. Just exchange of documents, quick exchange. We spent actually 7.5 hours in court. But the matter is finished. And we had some preparation before and. But that was quick and efficient for a divorce. You can have that also dragging on for 4 years, 5 years.
Costly and time consuming.
And it's not productive. It takes 2 people to agree. And if you have someone difficult at the other side, well, then that's it. What can you do?
So to sum up, what would be your top advice?
Well, think from the end. How, if this were to end, what should be the consequences of this? That's like normal project planning.
People don't want to think about the end when they start.
Yes, of course.
It's very practical, actually.
You know, we don't want to think about death. Well, should you plan death? No, because when you're dead, you have no problem. But if you're divorced, you have a problem. So you should plan for that definitely. Just think it through. Plan it through. How would you like this to end? Who should get the house? Who should get the savings? Should I work? My wife sits at home and then gets half my savings. If you're male, make sure that the female you choose to have a family with has earning capacity which gets close to yours. Because we have this gender bias in salaries. You're a guy who earns 20,000 in the bank and you marry the kindergarten teacher who earns 4,500, then your chances of paying high alimonies are pretty high. Because you are the only source of income she will ever have. You're the best source of income she can have without having to work. And even when she works, she'll never get as much out of work as she can get out of you.
Do I need to consider any legal concerns by publishing an interview?
Speak with a journalist. If you get consent for people to publish it, if you send them the script, and then they can listen to it and they say, yeah, fine, it's fine for you to publish it on Spotify, that's fine.
Okay.
If you at one point get money from that, you should let them sign some kind of release for the rights and blah blah from it.
Okay, that sounds already useful.
Yeah. But as long as they consent that you publish it, and as long as I think I have no clue about journalism, but I think it's considered good journalism if you ask people about, do you agree that it's published, and you have sometimes interviews which are agreed to be redacted by that person first before they are published. Sometimes it's the consent is given that it be published unredacted, and so. You have different ways of dealing with it. Even when you start taking money for it, that's the point when you need to get a little bit more precise on that.
Okay.
You know, that they relinquish all the rights and blah, blah, blah.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you. Anything else you would add?
I'm divorced twice. There's a reason why I married a second time.
What is it?
Well, because sometimes you find really people who are really exceptional and really great. And I wouldn't exclude getting married a third time. Probably not with kids.
But what is the sense of getting married, like for a man?
Probably making the woman happy. Even as a male, when you might value stability because you might be afraid of losing autonomy.
And on this happy note,
absolutely,
I would like to thank you for this inspiring interview. It was very interesting.
Okay, it was my pleasure.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.